wisdom of the wilderness and of the hunt live just before us all. But fewer and fewer heed the lesson, and thus her value slips, and our own hardiness wane. It's imperative that we go, that we participate, for you cannot rescue anyone or anything from too far a distance. This is the other side.
All right. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. What you just heard was the trailer for Donnie Vincent's new film, The Other Side. I was able to interview Donnie for a few hours in his hotel room the day that this launched before I actually saw the film. So today's podcast is that interview. I really enjoyed hanging out with Donnie each time I do. He's got he thinks deep about.
Donnie's a thinker. Donnie's the kind of guy that goes out to the woods because he needs some quiet so he can think.
Yes. And folks, this is my co-host, or rather the man behind the helm, Gritty Broman, my brother.
Hello, folks.
Running the show here. Right now, you can get Donnie's film on his website. I think you can get it on demand, or you can order the DVD. Donnie has traveled to a few different places to show it in the movie theater. I was able to see it in the movie theater. I got to learn a little bit about Donnie's journey into bear hunting, which is the subject of this film, and get a feel for, why he made the movie. The one thing that stood out to me when I did this interview with Donnie that he mentioned was, he's like, you may not like this film. You might hate my film. It's not why I did the film. And he kept saying, this is his ride. Like, this life he's in right now, this is his ride. He's doing it his way, the best he can, the best he knows how, staying true to who he is. It got me thinking, and there's this quote that reminded me of what Donnie said, and it's, you guys know who follow the podcast that I'm a big fan of Viktor Frankl and his book Man's Search for Meaning. And this is his quote, and I think it's applicable to this discussion I had with Donnie. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life, he can only respond by being responsible. Did you follow that, Brent?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I'm not good with responsibility. I'll tell you that right now.
Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather must recognize that it is he who is asked. In other words, each man is questioned by life. He can only answer to life by answering for his own life. So, it's kind of interesting. It's not like what life owes you. It's more like what you can do for life. Kind of a deep subject. It kind of flips things around, especially in a society where we're pretty entitled or act entitled to a lot of things.
What are you talking about? I'm not entitled to anything but what I'm entitled to.
I feel like this is my ride, like Donnie said, and it's my chance to do it my way. And I think what you'll take away from this podcast, one thing you'll take away is that Donnie tries to be true to Donnie and do it his way. And I think you'll take that away. And the film, you can go and, like I said, get that on his website. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Let us know. Send us a note. Send us an email. Subscribe to our newsletter. Keep us in the loop with what you're thinking. We're reading all your comments. We're reading all your emails, answering them on the podcast, and so on.
Oh, speaking of comments, I came across this comment the other day.
Look at you, all smooth, inserting a little comment here.
It was about to be smooth. You're right. It was. Anyways, harsh segue. Got a question, Ryan. And I'm not sure it's really a question. It's almost this guy brings a debate to you.
Yeah.
And as I read this, I want you to know I'm on his side.
Great.
This is by P. Brett Thorne. This is about episode 334, Make Your Bed. I really enjoyed the concept of the book you all reviewed and see value to the strategies. I would like to make one suggestion. Find anything other than making the bed to accomplish every morning. It can be push-ups, sit-ups, yoga, maybe not yoga, stretches, calisthenics, walking, anything but making the bed. Any of the above exercises all promote and lead to a healthier life, whereas bed making just wastes time and deteriorates life. I will defend my case with near facts derived from extensive researches done by my esteemed scholars at very prestigious universities, which then he never really gives. So, first, the human body perspires during sleep, and the fabrics of the bed absorbs the fluids along with the oils from the skin during contact. It sounds great, right? An unmade bed allows the air and environment to properly dry the fabric. Think about that. When you jump from bed and immediately make it, you are trapping all the moisture and heat and creating a petri dish for bacteria, mold, and other unwanted elements to grow.
Wow. This guy's really coming up with a lot of reasons not to make his bed.
Yeah, I'm a fan. Secondly, I would like to look at the cumulative time that is invested in said task of bed making. Let's say a bed takes 120 seconds to make. If the average human makes their bed 365 days a year and does that for 60 years, why is he only living to 60 years? In a lifetime, they will have totaled 7,300 hours, or just over a month of nothing but moving fabric. And then you still have to unmake the darn thing every night to get back in it. Lastly, I think we can all agree that an unmade bed is much more welcoming to a cozy afternoon nap than a perfectly wrapped mattress masterpiece. This has obviously taken me back to a dark place in my childhood, and I'm still struggling to overcome. The only other option is to adopt Brian's strategy of sleeping in bags in and out of backcountry. Cheers.
Nice.
I would love for you to rebuttal that.
Yeah, I'm not. It's funny. He's referring to an episode I did with Corey Jacobson last year at the Western Hunt Expo, I think it was, where it's about a book. I forget the name of the book.
I'm pretty sure it's 12. It's probably 12 Rules for Life.
No, it's not.
It's not Jordan Peterson?
No. But the book is good. It's about how if you can just kind of make your bed and you start off with that, it's a basic, simple thing. You can grow from there. It's sort of like Jordan B. Peterson says, clean your room.
See, I like that one more than make your bed.
Clean your room. Like if you can master that and get that basic thing done, then you've graduated to the point where you can start to do other things. But the point is, the last thing you should be doing is telling other people how to live.
You mean not make their beds?
Yeah. Is that's the last thing you should do is start trying to, like, if you can't get your own crap together. That's kind of how it goes. It's kind of
I read this gentleman and he's articulate. I don't think he does not have his crap together, but I don't think he doesn't have his crap together.
Look, I think there's more efficient ways to handle this. Like, my bed was made my whole life, all through high school, college, and so on. Because I had a sleeping bag that was stuffed under my bed, and I put it on top of my made bed.
I know the story.
And I slept in my sleeping bag, and then when I got up in the morning, I stuck it under my bed. I like efficiency. It was efficient.
Was it efficient?
Yeah, my bed looked nice every day because mom expected my bed to be made, but I didn't have to make it. Truthfully, it was like perfect all the time.
Who do you think broke her of that? Because by the time I came around, she was not enforcing that make your bed thing.
There's 16 years between us, bro. There's a lot of breaking that went on before you even were born. So anyway,
hey, scoot this way more. That camera died. You're only on that one.
Okay,
they're good.
Let's get into Donnie's podcast. I hope you guys enjoy it. As always, stay gritty. Big day.
It is a big day.
I think it's great, dude. I'm so glad you're. It's a little overdue, Donnie.
I know. You know what's funny is I ran into the gentleman from Mountain Ops, Jordan, at the airport last year after maybe ATA, something like that. I was sitting waiting for my flight, and he just happened up, and we started talking, And I'm not saying this egotistically, but it was kind of charming because he said, I'd never heard it put this way, but he said, "You're a very poignant filmmaker in the outdoor space, and you haven't come out with a piece in over 3 years." And I thought, oh, it has been 3 years, hasn't it? Shenanigans. Yeah.
Yeah. Not very many people can pull that off and maintain relevancy.
Yeah. I think you're probably correct. And I don't even know what has happened. Mm-hmm. You know, we went about this, William, myself, and Kyle being the original three, we went about this without any business plan. In fact, everyone, and I do mean everyone, told us we couldn't do this. Everyone said, you need to do TV. Here's what you do. You get yourself a TV show. You have to film 13 episodes. They're 22 minutes an episode. Then you have your 3 title sponsors. You know, essentially they gave us the Lee and Tiffany playbook. Mm-hmm. Like, this is how you make a bunch of money in the outdoor space, and this is how you get recognized. But really, all of those things didn't interest me at all. My career kind of came from the fact of being a hunter, hunting, and seeing the things that I were seeing in the wilderness or in the woods, and just wanting to share those with people. When I came out, if I saw a massive buck making a scrape, or I saw 2 bucks fight, or I saw a wolf kill a caribou, you know, I found myself coming home and sitting in the living room and telling people, like, and then this other wolf came, and there's a wolf along the river. And then I just started thinking, like, I better just start carrying a handy cam and film some of this stuff. And so then, of course, I started coming home and showing people home videos and stuff like that. But that's really where this is all kind of stemmed from. But it is, you know, so like I said, I mean, everyone that I confided in and said, hey, I think I kind of want to give this a go.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you first of all, you need a TV show. And I said, well, I don't really want to do a TV show because I don't enjoy the platform that I see on TV. I don't enjoy the things that I'm seeing on TV. And I don't want the work interrupted by commercials. And I don't want to have to commercialize the work. Mm-hmm. I'd rather just do something like what Fred Bear used to do, because that looks kind of rad. Yeah. And then
when I started Gritty, yeah. I didn't want to have hunting TV didn't relate to me in any way either. Mm-hmm. And neither did, you know, this is brought to you by such and such company and mm-hmm. things like that. So I avoided that and have from the beginning. With my partners, I'm like, I'll use it and that's it. Like, sure. And that's what I
products,
do anyway.
You mean.
Yeah.
Natural.
Products. Mm-hmm. I use it and that's it. I mean, there shouldn't be anything else. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons I have the partners I do is because a lot of other companies out there, first of all, there's stuff I'd use anyway, but a lot of those other companies wouldn't agree to it. Mm-hmm. They're like, yeah, we need so many of this per month, sure. and you need to do this, and you need a product placement here, and all that. And I'm like, then we're not compatible. Yeah, you know, go do your thing. Yeah, find someone else. It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And the companies I'm working with now, they're like, they agree to that. They're like, we get it. That's fine.
Yep.
We don't expect anything. We won't interrupt your flow, your process. We just want to be involved in any way you want it to happen. And mm-hmm. I think I wish that most of the industry or most of hunting media would go that direction.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I personally celebrate the way that we are able to go about it, and it allows us, you know, we have partners as well, of course. Obviously, we're here in Fort Collins because of OtterBox. Yeah. This is where OtterBox headquarters are. They're a fantastic partners of ours for a multitude of different projects. Not, you know, it's not a standard sponsorship deal or anything like that. We work with them on a number of fronts. We're here often, working with them for research and development and strategy, and they're awesome people and an awesome company. And so you will see tonight at the theater, our film is brought to you by OtterBox, but that's not a pay to play in that regard. That's a thank you. Like that mm-hmm. It's just exciting that they have welcomed our work, and they're such a massive company on the cell phone protection front, and now getting a little bit into outdoors with dry bags and coolers. But it's just cool to have such a mainstream company that are interested in habitat and conservation and hunting and sourcing our own food, and the owner is a big hunter, and so it's just pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that when you have a partner like that, I want to help them out as much as I want them to help me out, because if you are working together, they have influence. They have the ability to influence conservation. They have dollars to support and promote the message about hunting in a way that's positive. You know, I did an interview with Adam Yonke a while back from the Journal of Mountain Hunting. I know you know Adam. We got into this discussion on this kind of topic where he's like, you know, the way that we present our story from the hunting side of things to the, let's say, the non-hunting public, it matters, right? Like how we present that message matters long term, not just for hunting to continue, but also for people to understand conservation and to be involved in it in a positive way. And so we debated, like, who's responsible for influencing how that message goes? Is it a company like OtterBox, or is it an individual like Donnie Vincent?
And what did you guys come to?
I tend to believe more in the individual than the corporation.
I do as well. I think how we conduct ourselves, this is in the light of hunting and in fishing, and I'll tell you a story in a second about Flip Pallet. You know Flip, fly fisherman, does a lot of work with Yeti. Yep. I think it's the individual 100%, what we represent ourselves, how we carry ourselves, how we hunt, it's far more important what we do when there's not a camera on us than when there is a camera on us, right? We have to behave in a certain manner with a certain level of ethics, with a certain level of respect and hard work in all facets of our lives, whether we're hunting, fishing, everywhere. And when we're getting filmed, obviously it's that much greater, but it's not something that we can turn on and turn off. You either have to be the person that you embody, the person that you're representing, or you're going to get caught with your hand in the cookie jar. If you put on a certain facade when the camera's on, and you follow the rules and the ethics, and you hunt well and good, as I like to say, and you tag your deer before you move it, and you dot all the I's and cross all the T's when the camera's on, but then you have no mind for conservation, no love for wildlife, no idealization of habitat reconstruction and preservation. If you don't really embody these things at nighttime when things are quiet and no one's around, A, you're lying to yourself and everyone else, and B, you're going to get caught with your hand in the cookie jar, and it's not going to be a very good message, which is why you see a lot of people both in front of the camera and not in front of the camera getting busted all the time for cutting corners, because it's very easy in the realm of hunting and fishing. It's very easy to try and cut corners, to try and chase success, because it's very difficult to be successful, certainly consistently. And so you see guys kind of, crowding that line of morality and things like that. And then like companies like OtterBox, of course, they can play on a huge scale of being philanthropic with their money and with message and things like that. And so they have a fantastic reach, but I think it starts with us all individually. And I met Flip one time. We met someplace in Georgia over a knife company or something, but I met him for the first time, and I was a huge fan of his from when I was a kid. I used to watch his fishing show, and I said, I'm a huge fan of yours. And he said, oh, he's very humble, polite man. He's like, oh, thank you. And I said, do you know what I always noticed about your show? And that really warmed my heart and really made me feel proud to be a fisherman like you, even on a minute scale. And he said, what? And I said, I really loved how you've always handled the fish. How once the fish is out of the water, or once you're finishing the fish at the side of the boat, I really enjoyed how you always handled the fish with great care. Really what caught my eye was how he treated the animals once he had them out of the water. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, whether we think everyone's paying attention or not, you should be a really good person and a really good hunter and a really good conservationist. The world is growing smaller, not larger, right?
Yeah, especially with how open and visible all of our lives are due to just the mass media that's out there now.
Course.
I did a podcast not too long ago on doing what is meaningful instead of what's expedient. It's really easy for us to go out and take the easy route. Do something in hunting and fudge the lines or because at the moment it's easy and it'll reap some benefits. Where doing what is meaningful is much more difficult. Much more difficult. But I think in the long term, it's what fulfills a person and makes what you do matter. And so, yeah, you can chase a certain image or a certain dollar or whatever in life, inside of hunting or outside, doesn't matter. You can do a lot of things and take the quickest, easiest, most profitable route right out the gate. But is it meaningful? And if it's not meaningful, why do it? I could really look like an all-star right now if I just highlight the last 10 minutes of this hunt instead of the first 10 minutes of this. You know what I mean?
Trust me, when you watch the film tonight, you will. There's quite a few spots where I'm not looking very all-star-ish. I can assure you that.
Well, let's be honest. Like, that's something that stands out in the first couple of films that you've done.
Yep.
Rivers Divide, which I still think is one of the all-time best.
Thank you.
You wounded deer.
Yep. Miss
You
a deer
miss him.
at 17.
Right?
Yep.
And not a lot of excuses made. It happened.
Yep.
Next year, you're trying to kill the same deer.
Yep.
And that's the whole story. I mean, that's part of the journey is the failure.
Of course. And you'll see, like tonight, you'll see more mistakes, even greater mistakes than that. Like things go really south in parts of this film. And I'm not proud that they went south. I wish they would have went seamlessly perfect, but we're in the wilderness and we're hunting and we're doing things, everything. Nothing is perfect. Whether you're driving your car to go to the corner store and shop or chaos is all around us and has the ability to rear its ugly head at any time. And certainly when you're in the wilderness and you're beaten down and you're tired and you make a bad decision, things are accentuated. And when they're on camera, it's extra accentuated because we all like to go through our lives. And I'm not making excuses, but we all like to go through our lives and remember things as we think they happened,
right?
Which has been proven time and time again that it's almost always not what happened.
It's much easier to lie to yourself.
Yeah.
And then live with, again, it's expedient. It's easy.
Yeah.
And you tell yourself, some excuse for why you missed that had nothing to do with your own meltdown.
Yeah.
But instead it was some extenuating circumstance that you had no control over.
So you'll see some of that tonight. And I don't like failing. I don't appreciate that. I wish everything went really well, particularly in taking an animal's life. I wish everything went in the snap of a fingers and lasted only a couple of seconds and then the animal dies. But sometimes it doesn't go that way. And to be honest with you, this wasn't necessarily the case that you'll see in tonight's film, although this film encompasses about 6 years of my life and 6 years of serious growth as a hunter. Some things I realized immediately when I started hunting. I thought hunting was this. And then immediately as I started hunting, I realized it was a completely different experience, a completely different, when I first started out, I thought hunting was a way for men and women, but mostly men, to get into the outdoors and go on adventures with their buddies and go do manly things with guns and bows and hatchets and knives. And that's what I thought hunting was when I was reading all these books and reading these grand tales. I was like, oh man, I'd love to go to the Yukon territories with two of my buddies and go on a pack train ride and go hunt. But then when I realized I have fantastic responsibilities to try to be as efficient with my bow, gun, or whatever it is that I'm using to hunt, all these responsibilities. So all of a sudden I started realizing instantly that I have a lot of really big questions that don't have hard answers that I have to ask myself and then maybe seek out some wisdom from people that know more than I do or have hunted longer than I do, and have some sort of mentorship with these gentlemen or ladies and ask them and to try and figure out, where is it that I really live in this realm? Because my first hunt that I went on, I think I told you the story at ATA last year. First big game hunt I went on was a black bear hunt in Alaska. Yeah. The first black bear I saw, I was convinced that I was never going to be a hunter. The last thing I wanted to do when I saw that bear was kill it. The very last thing that was on my mind. I just wanted to watch it, be around it, instantly had an emotional connection to it as though it was a pet. Like I could see his eyes, I was watching his ears, I could see him breathe, how his toes were articulating over the rocks. Like instantly I felt an emotional connection to this animal because we're living in the same space now. I'm sitting on the rocks where this salmon stream is running by, and he is engaging in his environment, right? He was just taking a nap in the hills, in the mountains. The evening has come upon, and now he's coming down to fish, and now our two stories have kind of come together. But killing him was the last thing I wanted to do. And so I started really asking myself all these questions. That's really kind of where this film comes from, is continually asking myself these questions. And then terribly, in the same realm of this, in the Rivers Divide in Terra Nova, I went through target panic. And so as an archer, I went through rushing my shot sequence. And for people that don't know, target panic is, essentially like when you come to full draw with your bow, you have your conscious mind and then you have your subconscious mind, where I'm trying to time my eyeball aiming. I'm trying to put that pin on whatever I want to shoot, and then I'm slapping the trigger to try to time these two events to line them up, when it's difficult to time something that is happening individually. Your mind can only do one thing at once. I know you know this, but so I can't aim and pull my trigger. So I have to aim, pull the trigger, aim, pull the trigger, aim, pull the trigger, and try to line these things up to do kind of a drive-by. And I got away with it for a really long time.
Where target panic is concerned, often it happens much later in someone's archery career.
That's
it's
how
not
it
something
with me.
that starts in the beginning.
Yeah.
It does with some people, but most people, they have a lot of great success. And then all of a sudden, as they progress, that's when that target panic develops. And then all of a sudden, they go through these dark times.
Yep. It's exactly what happened to me. And I tie it to this often. I was never a good archer, never a good shot. I only became a decent shot. Like, I'm not a good shot. If I entered, Vegas, I'd come in probably dead last, right? But still, my shot sequence, like today, I'm really proud of the archer that I am, because I don't release a single arrow ever without it being a total surprise. Like, that's just how I shoot my bow. I have to use a hinge. I can use a trigger release as well, an index finger release, and I can use a thumb button sometimes, but I do the very best with a hinge that I shoot honestly, and then also like a breakthrough release, like the Evolution or the Silverback or any of those, like I can use and just pull, pop. Like I do. To me, it's a gift when you learn how to shoot like that. Of course, in a hunting situation, I might have to like stop a deer and shoot them. But when you practice with 100% surprise all the time, and then still in hunting, most of the time you have a surprise release, you're able to command that shot at the time that you need to with relative ease. Of the work that you guys have seen, this has happened to me a number of events in my life. I missed a deer in Iowa at 10 yards, a massive old buck. I missed him at 10 yards. I messed up on another deer at 28 yards in Iowa. I missed Steve, shot Steve in the shoulder at 35 yards, skipped an arrow off the back of a caribou in Terra Nova. All of these things, absolutely all of it, was me trying to rush my shot sequence, trying to feel like the clock is ticking, not slowing it down. The camera was weighing on my mind. Trying to create really good work and try to tell really good stories was, I had turned bow hunting into a business for myself, and I just lost my way, 100% lost my way, couldn't find my shot sequence, and I just had to hang the bow up, take a step back, and I started entering into a different type of mentorship where I used to ask hunters about, where do you find deer, and how do you sneak up on deer, and how do you field dress deer, and how do you cut a deer up, and where would you go sheep hunting, and how do you call moose? And, these are the things that I used to ask hunters. What type of tent do you buy? Where do you set your tent up? Things like this, trying to get woodsmanship and wisdom. To now, I started asking guys, how do you shoot your bow? What release do you use? And, and then I started realizing that you can't do two things at once. And then I read an article from Forrest Carter of Carter Releases, and he talked about the Honey 2, and he talked about pulling your sight off and standing in front of a target at 3 yards in your basement and just getting your shot sequence down. And the first 100 arrows, let's just call it, I'd shoot the first 100 arrows with the Honey 2. I'd come to full draw and click the safety off, and I'd just sit there and pop, and then like my heart beat out of my chest, and I'd knock another arrow, and I'd come to full draw, and I'd be sitting there and click the safety off, and pop, and like, oh jeez, like how could you ever get used to this? How could you ever get used to this? And then here I am, call it 100 arrows later, just pop, and like pretty soon it's like,
shooting a basketball.
Pretty soon it's like maybe I'm a professional archer. Maybe I can go on tour. Like I can shoot this bow like crazy.
Yeah.
And so I hated that I went through target panic, and I still struggle with it today, but it's not a struggle though today. I just know what I have to continually work on, right? It's like going to the gym every week or running hills every week or whatever. Is like, it's never easy. It's something I'm always working on, but it just takes work and cognizant behavior. And
now you have the tools.
Now I have the tools. And so now I can shoot all sorts of releases, but I still have my go-tos. Mm-hmm. And so going through, and I realized this was a very, very rounded storytelling to get to the point, but you'll see, you're not necessarily going to see target panic tonight in the film, but you're going to see a breakdown, a mental breakdown of in a very tense situation. You're going to see me fail at the highest, in the highest regard.
Every archery season, I am both a victor. I'm a hero. In my own mind, like the things I pulled off was like, wow. Mm-hmm. And I'm also the ultimate failure. Mm-hmm. And it seems that archery has a way of, it's difficult to master, and hunting in general. And this year I had some, what I felt like for me were outlandish successes. Mm-hmm. And I also had some epic failures. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And walking away from that, I found myself wondering, how come, I was perfect on this and made this perfect shot and I did everything right. And then how come over here, I just wet the bed? Mm-hmm. And why can't I be more consistent? Why can't I be the guy that gets it right every time? Mm-hmm. Why am I the guy that sometimes I'm like, I nail it, and then other times I'm not in the same mental state when I'm successful and when I'm not successful, because I can make a 40-yard shot 100% of the time, mm-hmm. or a 20-yard shot or a 60-yard shot every time. Mm-hmm. And I can take that into the field and be on a live animal in a moment. And I feel like I do very well not letting the size of the animal or the antlers or so forth mm-hmm. influence my shot. And often when I shoot today, I think I'm thinking about, I want to make sure I deliver a quick and efficient kill. Mm-hmm. But there are those occasions when I come on an animal that is just so outlandish, so incredible, and I'm not, like you said earlier, I'm not excited about it because I can say, oh, look at this animal I for the praise of other people, or I just genuinely appreciate the beauty and the age class and
it's just a rarity.
Yeah.
It's just, if you look at 100, if you had nothing to do with hunting, nothing, if you took 50 school children out there that were in 5th grade and you had 100 mule deer bucks standing in front of you, and one of them was a massive 8-year-old buck and the rest were 3-year-olds, everyone would say, look at that one.
Yeah.
It's just a marvel.
And what I've found, though, is as I film hunts and I have people there to, capture the story, especially this year, the hunts where I didn't have a cameraman and there was no film, I was brilliant.
Sure.
And then the few times when I had a camera over my shoulder, I screwed up bad.
Sure. And
so I'm like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And then deep down there must be something.
Of course. People are going to see it. People are watching. It's now you're on a stage, right? If you have to.
And I want that to not matter, Donnie. I want that to not be an issue. I want to be able to say I don't care about those things, and I'm only out there for these other reasons. And so, but the truth is there's something to it, because I see this trend, and if I'm being honest with myself, I know that the fact that it's on film, and I know there's this added pressure that I let influence me, and mastering that is a challenge, and I want to be someone who rises above that. But
and if you think about it, that's the way it is in a lot of elements. I mean, keeping in the light of archery, I don't know this, but I'm sure there are guys that could shoot or can shoot as well as Levi Morgan in their yard, maybe even better, which is awesome. Now go do it in a stadium full of people, and we have a completely different ball game,
right?
And that's mastering these things, right? Is if you have to give a speech in front of 1,000 people, it's really easy in your bathroom mirror.
Right.
Until you're standing in front of 1,000 people, then it might get into your head, things like that. So there's that, performance anxiety, I think. But, and it's so, for me, it's difficult to compartmentalize that with hunting, because hunting is such what are we doing in front of cameras? Hunting anyway, right? I mean, that's the way the world has gone. But, we went from being, explorers and frontiersmen and hunting. Back then you weren't a hunter, you just hunted. Everyone hunted. That's how we got our meat. That's how we engaged with our wild places. That's how the world went round. You trapped beaver and you bought flour and sugar and you shot deer for your cabin and then cameras were invented and we started taking pictures of things. Even way back then, you still see pictures of guys with massive bucks tied to the front of their cars or in horse-drawn carriages or being unloaded off of trains, where guys had literally taken a train to northern Minnesota, shot a big buck, they load it on the train car, they bring it back down to the Twin Cities where they live, and they unload it on the train. I mean, people have been celebrating these events as long as we've been able to capture, and now with Instagram and with Facebook, and now it's
kind of the commercialization of it rather than the celebration of the actual thing.
It is, and that's the difficult part of it is.
But don't you think, Donnie, that there's to interrupt you, storytelling has also been in human DNA for forever.
Absolutely.
And it's in you. Like anyone I ever meet, and we get on the subject of Donnie Vincent, it's like, I don't know very many people who can tell a hunting story as good as you can. Right?
I appreciate that.
And so, and I think that matters.
I agree.
Storytelling is what it means to be human in so many ways. And I feel like done well or done correctly, catching something like that on film, it's just that advanced level of storytelling. And the sad part is that we live in a world where sometimes the story is told one way or another. Sometimes the story that's told is I care about how badass I am and how many big animals I shoot, and I don't really hunt for these reasons here. I hunt for these really shallow and self-centered reasons over here.
It's a resume.
Right, and I feel like, but then there's the other stories being told too. Like, this is like I saw with you, your dad at age 75, was it?
Yeah.
Shot his first buck?
Yeah, it's funny because when he shot that buck, I go, "How old are you?" And he goes, "I'm 74. And then he went home and he texted me later on. And he goes, "Yeah, I talked to Mom. I'm 75.
That's when you know you've been around a while.
Yeah.
But right there, that's a story to be told. And I think, it's your dad's first buck, right? So he's not out there for, practically at the end of the road too. Like there's not a lot of, doesn't care what people think at this point.
It's funny too, cause, you'll hear guys say, "Oh, I don't score my deer and I don't care." And that's fine. And I don't really score my deer either, but I generally will measure them just cause I'm really curious, and so I scored my dad's deer and it came up to be 142 and change, something like that.
Yeah.
And, it's a 7-year-old Wisconsin whitetail.
Yeah.
It is a hammer of a deer. Obviously, it doesn't have the biggest antlers, but it's a sensational buck. And so he goes, "Oh, what did it score?" And I said 142, and he goes, "Oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty good." I'm like, "Oh, you're gonna take it? You'll take it." I'm like, you have no business, literally no business complaining about a spike, let alone shooting a 7-year-old whitetail. Yeah, that I've been trying to kill personally for over 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So like. But yeah, he's character. But yeah, these are really good stories, and I hope that you watch the work, and I hope you appreciate the work. And so many people have texted me this morning, and this is the big day. Your film's going to play tonight. Are you excited? And probably the thing that I'm most excited about is I just want to see people's reactions. I want to see what people feel about the things that we filmed, the story that we told, and the messages that we conveyed in the film, because really it's a divulsion of me. It's me saying, this is who I am.
Little piece of you out there.
100%. It's a little piece of me out there. So I'm not looking for praise. I'm just curious.
What would you like to see happen as a result of what you do in life?
This is going to sound horribly egotistical. I would like to see less walls between hunters and non-hunters and anti-hunters, because I hear things and I get messages on social media and email and stuff where people, like I killed a mountain lion last year. I've received so many death threats and people saying, who gives you the right to kill an endangered animal?
Right.
It's not an endangered species. Like, there's so much misinformation. We all, whether you're a hunter, a non-hunter, anti-hunter, you stand on your soapbox. You're either for animals or you're against animals. You're either a Republican or you're a Democrat. You're either an animal rights activist or you're a bloodthirsty murderer, killer. And I would really love our work to live on and be slightly inspirational in the fact of people celebrating what it is to have woodsmanship and to be a hunter, to engage with predator and prey, to do things in the outdoors, to hunt well and good. Like, I want this to be an inspiration to younger people, to current hunters, to elderly hunters. This is how I hope we all hunt. This is how, and I'm not saying like how I am in the film, but it would be great if we could go forth and have and start to develop our minds as conservationists and start asking these questions. Should we be hunting this population? How can we help aid this population? How can we help aid our environment? Instead of we spend so much time fighting amongst ourselves. I turned the TV on this morning, Hillary Clinton and something with Trump and something, all these investigations, which I know nothing about. If I turn that TV on in 6 months, it's going to be the same thing. If I turn, it just seems like everyone is so very good at building up walls and trying to say, yeah, but I want mine too, and yeah, but this is my agenda over here. And so I just feel like I don't really know what I hope this work accomplishes, but I hope it inspires people to do things in a different manner or maybe a better light. And I hope they live long after I do. I hope people are referencing this work in the future and either talking about how things used to be, how things maybe should have been or hopefully should have been, or, I don't even fully understand where we're going or what we're doing, but I just really hope that I know how I feel when I hunt, and I know how I feel about the animals when I hunt, and I've spent plenty of time around people that I don't believe feel the same way as I do, but yet call themselves hunters and seem to engage in a similar act as I do. But it means the world to me, and so I think that's probably my biggest. I want people to have questions, to ask better questions, and maybe get a few answers out of it, or to help steer them down the road a little bit of really who hunters are.
Well, I feel like there's in the world today, even my wife and I had this conversation recently where she's all about what I do, and she consumes all the meat, and but she said, we were just, 3 days ago, she's like, I don't know that I ever want to hunt. I don't think I want to kill anything, Brian. Like, I like archery, and I go to the events and I shoot my bow, and I like that you go out and do it. And that she's like, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I don't want to kill.
Yeah.
And so we had some long talks about it. And even she said certain things like maybe hunting a mountain lion. She was saying to me, I just don't know if I care to see you do that. I guess I understand all the things about it. Like it's a constant topic of conversation in our home. Her nature and personality and such it's still hard for her to see it happen.
I mean, that's, to be honest with you, that's why I hunted mountain lions last year, because I've always been not against it, but I've never, ever, ever wanted to do a mountain lion hunt. Ever. I had no interest in it whatsoever. And only through the prodding of my friend Ben Storak, who said, I have to kill 3 or 4 lions in my area. That's what the biologists want me to kill in my area. I'm going to hunt
either
and
way.
Kill 3 or 4 lions in my area. Why don't you come up and hunt one of them? You don't have to kill it. But should you choose not to kill it, I'm going to step right beside you and I'm going to kill it. And you can come up and experience it. And so he made a valid point. So this is going to happen regardless. He's working with his regional biologist, and they want him to remove some cats from his area, which has gone unchecked for quite a while. And so I went up and did it. And I wasn't going to let him, we did all the work with the lion. I stalked it all day without dogs. And of course we used dogs right at the very end. And was it my favorite hunt? No, not even top 100. Everyone has their, some guys love to hunt ducks and some guys love to hunt deer, and some guys, I can't even tell you how many times people would actually get upset when they found out I'd never hunted elk before. They'd physically get upset,
right.
And so everyone has their, their favorites. And so mountain lion is not even in my top 100. Absolutely not. But I'm glad I went and did it. I'm really glad I ate it. Could not believe how good it was.
That's what I've heard.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. That thing, we cooked 3 meals with it, I think, while we were there, we had a lot of people. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We had 8 guys in camp with my crew of 4. And then Ben had a crew of 4, including his wife. So 3 guys and his wife. We cooked platters full of mountain lion, and it never even made it to the table. It's like making nachos.
Right.
You make nachos in the kitchen, everyone's going to go watch the game.
Right.
They didn't even make it to the living room. Right. That's how the mountain lion was. We made them, and guys were having a cup of coffee, and as we were pulling pieces off the grill, they were disappearing. And literally never even made it to the kitchen table. And we made a bunch of sheep one night. We had a pretty elegant dinner. We made a bunch of sheep and a bunch of mountain lion. There were sheep left. There was no mountain lion left. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful I helped him remove a cat. really has no bearing on me. Like, I want to be a conservation in the sense that I want to leave areas better than which I found them. Did I? I don't know. I helped contribute to some mule deer and some bighorn sheep living. Does that make the area better? I don't know. That makes the area more balanced for how the Ministry of Fish and Wildlife in Canada wants to balance their resources, right? Mm-hmm. They have sheep tags that they hunt and fill. They have deer tags that they hunt and fill. And they have lions and wolves that they're trying to create these balances. But, we're the ones that have impacted these animals. We're the ones that have moved in the mountains. We're the ones that have displaced them. You can see a coyote in downtown LA at any given night, and so we're the ones that have kind of built this urban jungle and continue with expanding. And so
I read a book, Boone, biography, not too long ago, and it's about Daniel Boone, and I really wanted an image of what this continent looked like before European conquest, right? Yeah. And to hear what it was like as he moved west, and to hear about the number of black bears on the continent, and especially on the east side, it blew my mind. Yeah, like just to hear. And I did a film a little bit ago called "Consuming Life" about black bears and bear hunting, just on a kind of a higher level. But I just wanted to present some facts and some figures and some information on bears. And as I did the research and talked to different individuals, some interviews, it came to there's an estimate that there's 450,000 black bears in North America between the United States and Canada.
I would have guessed more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they said maybe 500,000,
Okay.
But it's surprisingly low. Like, and even if they're wrong by 100%, I mean, you're still looking at, there's 1 million bears. Yeah. Yeah. And when you start adding it up too, they said some 35% of those are in like Alaska.
Yes.
And British Columbia.
Yes.
And so you take those two out and there's really not very many bears on the continent. Yeah. You add it up and you're talking millions of bears before Europeans come here. Now you're talking 450,000. And we kind of act like we've made some kind of huge conservation step here where we've achieved something. And I look at that and I made a comment offhand about we're kind of a one species planet now. It's all humans, and I know and I'd say I'd have to clarify that some, like maybe it's a one species planet in terms of the, mammals. But still you look at the overwhelming human population and the minute bear population, just as an example. Yeah. And you begin to realize that without some human involvement in terms of management, things are going to disappear because it's not like you have millions upon millions of bears anymore. Yeah. You have little pockets. Yeah. And then same with deer and elk and so forth. I did a podcast not too long ago, Before the West Was Wild, where they had, where we talked about the amount of public land, federally managed public land that's on the continent today. And it's like 25% is public land and 75% is either state trust lands or private. Okay. Mostly private. Yeah. So 75% of this continent is now private property being used for various reasons, right? Some of the largest tracts of unpopulated and uninhabited land is that 25% that's public. Now, there's certain animals that win the lottery when humans come on the scene. Coyotes. They score. White-tailed deer. They thrive in human populations. And then there's those animals that absolutely disappear when urban centers and when cities, when privatization occurs and you have like the grizzly bear. There's no way human beings are going to tolerate them in New Jersey. Right. There's no way, even
nor can the bear tolerate
humans. And so you have other species like sheep, bighorn sheep. They cannot survive in places where there's humans. They just disappear. Yep. Be it disease or
almost always disease. From domesticated
sheep, domesticated critters. And so, these vast areas of untouched land, I feel like, come on, we've already taken 75, 80%. Can we not just leave that 20, 25% alone and just let it be and just harvest from it as needed? It's kind of a scary place we live in today because people are disconnected from the reality of that situation. They have in their mind some kind of utopian image of what nature's like. And so if we could just leave it untouched, it would just
perpetuate into harmony. Which is not going to happen. Too many outside variables. And in the private sector too, I hear a lot of things that are kind of raw for public lands right now. And I appreciate that, but also some of the biggest conservation projects on the continent are privately funded on private big scale project lands, and these guys and it's, I can't fault them, because if I had $1 billion, I would do exactly what, like we read about these guys that buy, 10 miles of the Platte River and restore the riverbed and restore this, or they buy trout streams and they restore them. They buy massive whitetail areas or elk areas and they restore them, and the grasses and everything. And I would do the same thing.
I know, me too.
I would do the same thing.
I would too.
And so it goes both ways, but definitely needs to be a cry for public land. But I do get pretty ultra annoyed with when it is what it is. But like I hate talking about social media. But when we do a post, let's say I post a picture of I have an Iowa tag this year. I haven't killed a deer yet, but maybe I'll kill one late December.
Right.
Should I kill a deer? And I post it. Within 5 comments, someone will say public or private land. And I don't care. I hunt public land 99% of the time. In fact, the only species that I generally hunt on private land is the white-tailed deer. And that's only part of the time. Everything else I hunt on public land. Absolutely everything else. But these guys, they can't wait. It's just like guys sometimes saying, were you guided or self-guided? People want to put
a label
on the success or the story, I just wish people would digest.
That's been
for what it was.
A lot of my posts recently have been in defense of private land, and because there has been a raw, in favor of public. And like you said, I really, really value the private land that's out there that's being managed well. And as much as I wish I had access to it, I'm like, there's a lot out there that I do have access to.
Look what they've done to like waterfowl, for instance, right? Look at what they've done to ducks and geese. I mean, some of these private farms where they've taken nothing and turned it into fantastic duck habitat to give these guys staging areas as they come south. And
I'm a big fan of that. And the social media thing, in guided or non-guided, public or private, at the end of the day, that's just a competition. It's a measuring contest.
Sure.
Who's better than who?
Sure.
Instead of, let's all celebrate hunting. Let's all celebrate the experience. Instead, it's, is he better or she better than I am? Okay, let's look at where it happened, who he hunted with, who this. And unfortunately, it's human nature, and it's it's the ugly part, I think, of what social media brings to bear. But at the same time, like you said, the first question that comes up is, or for me, it's like, I used to like you before you started hunting everything private land and guided. It's like, that makes up like 7% of every hunt I've ever done. And so it's like...
And people think also that...
sorry to interrupt, but the non-hunter doesn't care. They want to hear about other parts of this, not whether you did it on public or private.
That's right. I can't even tell you how many... most of my engagement, I shouldn't say most, a significant portion of engagement that I get through people is from non-hunters. It's if it's not the majority, it's 50-50. And almost always it's a pretty good scale of recruitment of guys that say, I listened to you on Joe Rogan, you completely changed my mind. I just got an email this morning from a vegan She listened to Joe Rogan, and she's like, I'm not going to hunt. I have no interest in eating meat. She loves her vegan lifestyle. But she said, my mind has been completely opened to the idea of hunting and hunters, and now have a great appreciation for people that I used to be against and always had something to say should it be brought up in social circles. Now I find myself defending them and saying, not necessarily standing on a soapbox and saying, it's this, this, or this. She's not proving a point. She's saying, she's just asking people that are denouncing the things that we do. She's asking questions. Well, have you ever considered this? Have you ever considered this? And that's really what it boils down to. We live in a world of gray, not black and white. And we always have to keep asking ourselves questions. Whether you're a vegan or you're a hunter, you should be asking yourselves a question. If you're not, then you're not bettering yourself. You're not trying to better the people around you. You're not trying to better the land around you. And it's such a slippery slope. We have gone the wrong direction for so long. There's so many people, and we keep creating more, and we keep building more, and we push into the hills. I just flew over. Have you ever been to Mexico City?
No.
I just flew over it the other day, and I had my face glued to the airplane window. I cannot believe how massive that city is. It made New York City look like a 30-person town in South Dakota. Wow. The city just goes forever, and you see these big hills outside of Mexico City, and you can just see houses all the way up, and I mean, like, all the houses are touching. How they get anywhere in that city, like how you get to the airport in a timely fashion if you live anywhere, is beyond me. I just could not believe seeing just the amount of people that live on the face of this earth.
Well, when I see that much concrete jungle, I get a little discouraged, Donnie, that we can have an influence on the world at large.
I know. Okay. I can't control the human population. Certainly not a madman. I'm not going to release a disease into a train car in China and try to affect things.
Right.
Yeah, right. So what it comes down to is, this is my ride on Earth. I happen to be a human being. I'm not a monarch butterfly. I'm not a tobacco worm. I'm not like
right.
I'm not a baboon. This is what I happen to be, a human being. So this is my ride. If I were a great white shark, I'd be looking for a seal right now. That's his or her ride.
Right.
This is my ride, and my ride is, I want to be in the mountains. I want to be sitting on a little waterfowl slough in South Dakota, hunting blue-winged teal. I want to be planting apple trees. This is my ride.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do. That I want to go and backpack around in Alaska and hunt Dall sheep, or go with friends of mine that have a Dall sheep tag, or go hike around the mountains in Alaska, which I've done many times, and look at Dall sheep before I could afford to go Dall sheep hunting. And so that's what I mean. Like, I want to have mine. You go to Manhattan, go see Cats on Broadway, go get your latte, go with your beautiful wife downtown, and you do you, and I want to get mine, and I want to celebrate the things that are outside. And I just so happen to work with a group of gentlemen that we all have the same philosophies, and we all have the same ethics, and we want to share the things that we get to see and participate in, and do a little storytelling, and maybe tell you where my mind has evolved into a film. You don't have to watch it, you don't have to buy it, but
I feel like when you say your ride, in some ways it sounds a little selfish, but at the same time, you're using your ride to trying to give people that live in these concrete jungles, I guess, a glimpse of what the world is outside. Mm-hmm. I think if humanity doesn't get in touch with nature and the natural world, back in touch with it, we're doomed.
It's going to be tough.
We're doomed.
It's going to be tough, and I'm happy that I'm not going to be here to see it, but that's not my attitude of the future. My attitude is to try to make it as best as possible to, But it's ironic too, though, Donnie, because in the United States, we have made some major achievements in the world of conservation and in waterfowl, in big game, there are more white-tailed deer. I mean, obviously, you said they respond very well to when we create disruption and edge. But there's more white-tailed deer now than there's ever been.
Yeah,
ever been.
And so in some ways, it's like it is a remarkable place where we're at. I think one thing I had read not too long ago was that it really does require a high level of wealth and affluency in order to develop a conservation model that sticks in a country.
Yes.
That without affluency and wealth, the last thing people are going to care about is nature. And if you look back, it's easy for me to look back at those who just slaughtered the buffalo and all the wanton waste that occurred back then. Mm-hmm. But if I put myself back there and I think about it, those often back in that period, people were just trying to survive. Mm-hmm. They're just trying to get from day one to day two and live. And in an environment like that, it's like you got babies or kids or a family and you're like, I don't give a dang about buffalo. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to live to the next day. It's like when I've been to India and some sort of third world places. And those people, if I talk to them about conservation, they're like, look, my daughter's starving to death.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to get to tomorrow. I don't care about the bird that's rare over here that's about to be, dude.
I will sell a tiger skin if it means that I can feed my family for the next 6 months.
And so in some ways, I feel like unless we as humans find a way to overcome poverty and darkness and all of that,
it'll never happen.
Yep. It's a scary, that's like, where do we end up? Where's nature going to end up? Yeah.
And it's interesting if you think about,
I don't have a lot of faith in humanity myself, but it doesn't mean I'm going to give up.
No.
It's
no.
And like you said with your right, what I was getting to is I'm a realist, pragmatist, but at the same time, what am I going to do? Quit?
Exactly. If you look at, it's really fun for me, look at how we recycle now.
Yeah.
Look at what companies are doing with recycled bottles. Look at what
green energy
furniture you can buy. Look at the solar power. Is it going to fix it? No. Is it trending in the right direction? Absolutely. Do we think as a species, and you have to think about it. So if you go to Manhattan or the Bronx, Queens, whatever, everything is concrete. Everything is a building. The only wild places that exist are Central Park or a tree here or there. So are we trending towards, and I'm suspicious that we are we trending towards everything is covered in concrete and buildings and infrastructure and everything is privatized and we no longer, other than the most harsh areas like Mount Everest, K2, maybe the Chugach Range in Alaska, whatever, other than the most vertical, harsh areas, are we going to be a concrete jungle all the way up to the base of these mountains where you can really no longer build, which at that point in time we'll figure out a way to build.
I honestly, I don't think so. I think that some of the stuff I've read about this subject, statistically what they found is that populations decline with the increase in wealth and affluency.
Okay.
And so overall, so in Europe, a lot of these countries are first world countries, and as education, intellect, and things grow, the number of children that each people have decreases dramatically.
But the number of those wealthy countries is limited. Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
But they continue to pop up.
Sure. Sure.
And
epicenters, if you will.
and so they predict, what I've seen is a prediction that the human population will actually decline rather than increase. And anywhere you look at a third world country, the population is exploding. And you look at other, like Europe and the U.S., where the population is decreasing. And it's kind of interesting.
Well, if that's the case, if that is a trend that continues, well, then we have
there's some possibility.
Then we have a chance.
I just get a little discouraged sometimes though when I swing through like a Manhattan and you're like, does it? It's like Joe Rogan says, people get crazy when they start bringing the food in on trucks to the city.
That's funny. But that's right. And so that's when I say when, I'm the type of guy, I don't want to say this because it's going to denounce others, but I could have handled this as a career. I could have handled this very, very differently.
Yeah.
I could have chased dollars and said, hey, I just want to hunt for a living. I just want to fish for a living, if that's even really a thing. Mm-hmm. I saw an avenue of where I could do the things that I wanted to do, make way, way, way less money, but be able to hold my head high and be proud of the work. Like, you could hate the film tonight for all practical and honest purposes. He could hate the film tonight. We could get booed out of that theater tonight, 100%. And I still am proud of what we put together.
Yeah, that's where it's at. I mentioned this not too long ago. I'm rich in lifestyle.
Sure.
In lifestyle.
Sure.
Dollar bills, not so much.
Sure.
But I get to be outside all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I get to engage with wildlife all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot easier ways to get rich than having some kind of hunting TV show. Mm-hmm. I did quite well before I ever got into, this whole gritty thing.
Sure.
I had a great income and I had a great career, college degree and the whole deal. Mm-hmm. And I was wealthier in terms of just dollar bills. Mm-hmm. But today I'm 100 times, 200 times richer in my lifestyle, and to be able to be in this position today where I can now spend a lot of my time trying to change the world in terms of its view of wildlife and the outdoors, conservation, the future. Mm-hmm. It's a great place to be. Mm-hmm. It's a rewarding place to be. And at the end of the day, people may not like what I do or agree with what I say, but like you just said about your film, it's what I believe, and so I'm okay if we disagree.
Yep. That's where you have to live, I think.
I've got a question for you because I just got back from Kodiak. It was my first time I've ever been to Kodiak. Mm-hmm. I was hunting with Cole Kramer.
Mm-hmm. Great guy.
He's a funny dude.
He is a funny man.
I had no idea Cole was that funny.
He is something
else. He's got a sense of humor that had me rolling the whole time.
I've spent a lot of time with Cole.
Yeah. We were hunting Sitka blacktail.
Yep. It would probably be in the top 5 of all species to hunt for me. If I were to list them out, maybe even top 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I've hunted them on Prince of Wales Island, but I've never been to Kodiak.
Yep.
So I went there and just got back about a week ago. Okay. And my question is, what's your impression of Kodiak? What does it bring to mind? What adventure does it hold or not hold? I mean, because I love Kodiak.
Yeah.
There's some interesting things about it as I've been there, thought about it. Cole's like, we spotted a bunch of caribou up on the mountain, and I was like, "Do you have caribou here?" Mm-hmm. And then
huge caribou.
And then he's like, "Oh, and then there's mountain goat." And I knew they were mountain goat, but I suspected they weren't native.
Correct.
And so then find out they're not.
Yep.
And neither are caribou.
Yep.
And then neither are Sitka blacktail.
Yep.
And then there's brown bear. It's like there's 4 main species people hunt on the island.
Yeah.
And 3 of them are introduced.
Yeah.
Or one might quote and say, one might say invasive species.
Yeah.
And yet I don't really want to see any of those animals removed from the island.
No, and they do. And it's funny that you say that because I just came home from Tiburon Island. And Tiburon Island in Mexico is the exact same thing. Every megalofauna species that is on there, desert bighorn sheep, desert mule deer, coyotes, rabbits, they tried to introduce pigs, were all brought out there because the only thing that lived out there were insects and reptiles and some rodents. And obviously I'm grossly overgeneralizing, but basically everything that was a large animal was brought over, and the sheep did remarkably well. Mule deer did remarkably well. Coyotes remarkably well, and it was really cool to be there around the coyotes because coyotes aren't legal to hunt there. And so it's I shouldn't say that's illegal to hunt there.
They're just not hunted?
The island is owned by the Seri Indians, and the Seri Indians believe that the coyotes are an extension of their heritage and of their elders. Mm-hmm. And so it was cool because I saw coyotes when I was there, which I've never seen here. But I saw coyotes there that were 15 years old. And skin and bones, not sick.
Just
old ladies, little old ladies walking down the street, and they would come and walk right past you. And I mean, I've had that in other places. I've had coyotes very, very close to me, in even hunted areas. But it was just cool to see little old coyotes, like little old men, and little old women, like cruising down the trail, and so all those animals did remarkably well on the island. Oddly enough, and funny enough, because people talk about how intelligent pigs are, so they released pigs on the island as well, probably in the form, I'm using the pigs as a general, I think it's probably collared peccaries, probably javelina, if you will.
Okay.
But they released them on the island, and literally, and this is all documented, literally the pigs turned, entered the ocean, and swam back to the mainland in minutes. And literally everything else ran out into the island and started to prosper.
Populate.
Pigs turned, got in the ocean, and swam back to the mainland.
Amazing.
Done.
Yeah.
So Kodiak, and there are a lot of areas like that where...
Like I hunted tar in New Zealand, and one of the issues that came up was, this recent tar coal and stuff. We should get rid of all the tar. And it's just and I just find it interesting that there's a lot of cases in our side of the pond where we
have done the same.
We kind of turn a blind eye to all of these species that are quote unquote invasive. Mm-hmm. But then, when I've mentioned it about tar, a huge portion of the hunting public has been, hey, they don't belong there.
Yeah.
Get rid of them. They're invasive. Yeah. I'm like, well, but so are
a lot of things.
Around the world,
including us.
That's the next thing I was going to say is
there's a lot of places we don't belong.
Yeah.
And we go through I'm sure there are other species, but we go through our environment like a wrecking ball.
Yeah.
Whether we want shark fin soup, or we think there's too many coyotes, or we're vegans, or we think we have the rights to all the oil that is currently under the sand in Iraq, or, we just take what we want. And we do that for everything. We do it through agriculture. We do it through hunting. We do it through business. We do it through
power, electricity,
everything,
hydro. Yeah.
We go through our environment like a bull in a china shop.
Yeah.
And we're all 100% guilty of it. But Kodiak, as far as I'm concerned, paradise.
We didn't see a single hunter.
Yeah. I hunted there with Cole. I won't tell you where. He probably did. But a very special area that's special to Cole but we hunted this spot, and we saw remnants of hunters. There were hunters just before us, like the week before us. So we never saw them, but we saw their tracks, and we saw they left garbage behind, of course, which we cleaned up.
Yeah.
But yeah, we never. It's paradise. Yeah, it's paradise, and those little black-tailed deer are just so incredible. They're like hunting little pot-bellied pigs, and they put on such a show. You're hunting them during the rut,
chunky.
Of course. Were they rutting well when you were there?
Yeah, they were still rutting. They had been. They were absolutely stupid the week before. They attacked Cole's tents.
Yeah.
And just put giant holes in them.
Yeah.
They would actually came up to the hunting party a few times and seemed like they wanted to fight. You know?
We would call them in when I was there filming a few years ago. That was the year that I wore Kuyu for a year. Mm-hmm. We were there, and I could take now. If you're talking about an older buck, they don't behave that way.
Yep.
Like they'll still be quote unquote stupid if they're with a doe, and you can sneak up on them or whatever. But anything 2.5 or younger, we could take our stocking caps off, wiggle them down by our butts, and just make the noise meow. Meow.
And they'd come running.
To 2 feet. They would come and stare at you like your Labrador. Just sit there and look at you like, was it you that called me over here?
Right.
We filmed them from feet away, and it was funny because the first time it happened, we thought, we had all the cameras rolling. Mm-hmm. Oh my, that was such an amazing experience. And then it happened 10 times a day.
Right.
Like, whoa. Yeah, they're really looking for love. And I love Kodiak. And I know that we do that that's a selfish, again, as a hunter, but it's a perfectly suited island for, let's put some species there that will do very, very well there. They're not going to wipe out any other species that are there.
Right. And one thing that I found interesting was that, the state of Alaska, they're managing that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There's a certain amount of harvest for each of these species.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Introduced or not.
Yeah.
And it's become a resource that's leveraged and that people value and appreciate.
You have to draw a tag oftentimes.
And then you go to like New Zealand and there's no tag system, there's no management, there's no anything. But there is for fishing and there is for birds.
Yeah.
But
because they're native.
No, it's trout are non-native. All the brown trout are non-native, and most of the seabirds are. A lot of these birds are introduced.
But are they getting monies from the trout and bird for native species? Is my point. Like, are they trying to spend that stuff locally, or are they trying to?
I think they just recognize those at some point as a resource that they want to keep and manage. Where they just never did it for stag and for chamois and for tar. But I wonder if they did, if that would change their value system toward the animal.
Of course it would. Yeah,
because I think right now you can have them both. Is what I'm getting.
You can, yeah. I mean, look at how well sheep populations have done moving them to different mountain ranges and
where their native ranges are, like the Himalayan tar is not doing so well in its native range. It's often threatened or population struggle.
Sure.
You move them to someplace like New Zealand and they do so well.
Yeah.
I'm like, I really think that as humanity progresses, we should really consider making room for certain species in alternate locations because they're not going to survive.
Again, we have started that. Would you want to do that from the beginning? No. Would you want to? But we've set that ball rolling.
Yeah, we're kind of in the midst of a mass extinction event.
Yeah.
When you started introducing intercontinental travel, we started bringing animals that would just had a suite of skills and abilities that far surpassed the native fauna, and it's just a matter of time before once they land there that they just dominate. And unfortunately, there are species that suffer and disappear, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle. Like, what do we do where we can make a difference? But sometimes I feel like we go too far.
With introductions, you mean, or
with the removal of introductions?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it goes both ways. Like you look at something like the cane toad in Australia, right? Introduced into Australia to get rid of, I believe, a grub that was eating the sugar cane or something along those lines. And those two life cycles don't even meet each other. The cane toad doesn't eat the grub, but the cane toad literally eats everything else in Australia, man, woman, and child. Yeah.
And
so, but in the regards of something like Kodiak, I think Kodiak's a paradise.
Where, we should wrap this up, but before we do, you've been around the world. You've been places. You've hunted a lot of places, different animals.
Yep.
And I think I may have asked you this before, but what are some top places you've been that you cherish?
I have a few. Certainly one would be the Arctic Circle. Anywhere along the lines of the Arctic Circle, but I just really enjoy being in the wide open spaces up there, and I really enjoy being in areas of the country or areas of the globe where there are moose and caribou, grizzly bears, wolves. Primarily, that's one of the biggest reasons why I only hunted elk once, is because when August and September would roll around, those are the areas that I would go. Kodiak, certainly a favorite. I've never hunted, I shouldn't say that, I have hunted Sitka black-tailed deer, other places, but I've hunted them on other little coastal islands like in the Prince William Sound. So, believe it or not, one of my favorite places in the world is North Dakota. The Dakotas. I love the Dakotas, both just their wildlife and people are so very nice there, even though sometimes they're not very welcoming to out-of-state hunters. Sometimes they want to shoo us away, which is okay. But I love the Dakotas. I love the pheasants. I love the waterfowl. I grew up wanting to hunt ducks and geese more than anything. I mean, I had a fascination with sheep and moose and caribou, and then a fascination with the white-tailed deer and a fascination with ducks and geese. Those are really like kind of my epicenters. And I know that's all over the place, but those are really, like when I get a chance to hunt in Alaska for dull sheep, or like this next year, I'm spending 30 plus days in and around the Bonnet Plume in the Yukon territories. We're going to go up there and film for over a month. Like, that's one of my favorite areas of the world, right? Yeah. And again, it's dull sheep, caribou, moose, wolves, grizzly.
I'm noticing a cold weather theme here with you, Donnie.
I like cold. I like the cold. Yeah. And that's the other thing is I like the cold. Like, I was just in Mexico last week, and it was weird.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was weird to be so comfortable in a t-shirt. I hunted in a t-shirt and a long sleeve icebreaker wool shirt the whole time, and the other weird thing is I've done, this is probably my 10th or 11th sheep hunt, something like that, maybe 12th. But there's no water on the island, so we had to carry all of our water, and because water is so intensive, we couldn't carry freeze-dried food, so we had to carry full weight food. So now we're carrying all of our hunting gear, all of our backpacking gear, all of our camera gear, all of our water for a week, and all of our full weight food for a week. And so it was
different.
It was different. It was intensive. So, but yeah, I definitely tend towards Alaska, Yukon territories, Northwest territories. Yeah. I love the Dakotas. I love big woods areas like Maine. Things where you can hunt bucks in the big woods and track them. I've never done it. I've attempted to do it a few times. I've never done it successfully. Places where you can hunt sea ducks. I love that about Maine is the eiders and the coastal black ducks and white-tailed deer. I love those ideas.
I've found myself falling in love with white-tailed deer. Mm-hmm. Didn't think I would, for a long time. I was like, eh. And
a lot of Western guys seem to have this angst about the white-tailed deer until they start hunting them, and then they go, oh, huh.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Yeah, I'm kind of sucked in now. Like, I'm looking forward to the whitetail hunt is like one of the chief hunts I look forward to every year.
Yep.
And I just would never have thought
they put on such a show.
They're just incredible.
They put on and it's funny. I was talking to this guy. He will remain nameless, because everyone would know who he is. But he was kind of running his mouth a little bit one time. We were having a drink and talking. He's like, "Oh, you whitetail hunters, all you do is hunt. You hunt them where they bed, and then they go to food, and you hunt them where they bed and go to food, and that's what you do." And I said, "Oh, yeah, what do you mule deer guys do?" And he's like, well, we glass them. And I'm like, okay, so they're in the wide open. And you either locate them in their bed.
Yeah.
Or when they stand up to feed for the night.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you watch them bed and then you go hunt them in their bed.
Yes. Which would be impossible with a whitetail deer in most places. But so it's funny how we like to, and guys even have said to me, it's funny how these animals, I think about this often because sometimes people ask me, what would be your favorite species to hunt? Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to come up with one because I'm as invested in a green-winged teal as I am a caribou, as I am a white-tailed deer. I definitely have my tops, like Sitka black-tailed deer are up there on Kodiak because they put on, I'm easily entertained.
Yeah.
And the Sitka black-tailed deer put on such a show in November
where
they are trying to get their harem of does and they're fighting and it's just such a display, and then you get to look out over the vast ocean. You get to see brown bears. You get to see sea ducks, fox. You get to see mountain goats, and for me, all of that adds into. So why is it the Sitka black-tailed deer? Well, it's because of all of that, right?
It's the whole package.
So it's the whole package, and same with the white-tailed deer. I start to think about frosty mornings. And hearing their grunts, meh, 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 and seeing them dog doze and seeing them fight and being able to rattle them in and being able to engage with an animal. And I think about Canada geese honking as they're going to the fields and they're flying overhead and the sun is, coming up or setting and ducks and I just think about it all. And that's what happens when I think about these hunts is everything starts to get embodied.
Well, I've had this epiphany and I brought it up a few times in the podcast where I feel as a Western hunter, as starting Gritty Bowman and this guy, that I have a certain animal and type of hunt that I should value above others. Mm-hmm. It's like almost this peer pressure to
elk.
Yeah, like elk. I'm supposed to find elk hunting the best, and then from there, and so on. And some of the things I feel like I'm supposed to like mule deer more than whitetail.
Yeah,
and then I'm supposed to like let's say a mountain hunt like mountain goat or sheep more than I like moose. And I find myself feeling the opposite about almost all those stereotypes, including, for example, if I had a choice between right now hunting a mountain goat or a tahr in New Zealand Southern Alps, for some reason, having done both, the tahr fascinates me more. And it goes back to the show, like you were describing. When I watch tahr go at each other, and I watch them get glad of these harems and their big coats puff out, and I see the way that they act and the way they whistle and stuff and warn each other and then take off, it's like, for me, it was just a spectacular and new thing, but I'm supposed to like this other thing. And I've also found, like, when it comes to mountain hunting, up on those steep cliffs, and I enjoy it, but I don't like it more than whitetail woods necessarily. Yeah, it's spectacular, but so are the trees and the woods and the hardwoods. And it's like, so I find myself feeling like I want to do me. And if I prefer this to that, I'm going to do it, I guess, even though,
of course,
other people are like, why would you choose that?
Of course. People love to, and I get so tired of it's all mental. It's all a mental game, right? And it's just what you enjoy. Like you said, like whitetail hunting, like guys just love to boast about what they've accomplished or what they've done, and really just do, just engage with the things that you want to do. And did I enjoy hunting elk? Yeah, it's really fun. Is it the best thing I've ever done? Not even close. Is it in my top 5? No. But that's just me. That's just, and I didn't have a very good elk hunt, so I have a sample size of 1.
Right.
I had a great tag in Nevada, but which is supposed to be amazing, and the elk was amazing. Nevada was amazing. I felt there was way too many hunters. I've been on many, many caribou hunts where I never saw another human being. I went on an elk hunt and saw hundreds of hunters and ATVs. And, so like, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go over here. But yeah, I think that's great that you have the realization that, and for me, people ask me all the time, like I get invited to go to New Zealand 5 times a year.
Right.
Come here and hunt, I would love to go to New Zealand, but I am completely fixated on North America.
Yeah.
Never been to Africa. I've done work in Asia. I've hunted Russia, which is essentially like North America. It's 70 miles away from Alaska is where I was hunting.
Yeah.
And hunted sheep over there. And so, but yeah, we all have our little, and I get, and I mean this, if one of my crew or one of my buddies says, hey, you want to, tomorrow afternoon, I'd like to get a couple of does off my property. You want to go on a doe hunt? It is, and I mean this, I just killed a desert bighorn sheep, my first of my life last week. I can go to a buddy's farm in Wisconsin on a doe hunt, and it is the same to me. I am just as excited to still hunt or to get in a ground blind or to get in a tree stand and see those first does coming out into the picked bean field or in a transition zone or whatever it may be. Or if you call me and say, hey, let's go hunt diver ducks on Green Bay and Lake Michigan or blue-winged teal in South Dakota, like it's how I hunt and who I hunt with. And it's actually even, oddly enough, and I think this is a personality flaw of mine, it's what I'm hunting with. Like, I want my gun to be right. It doesn't have to be the best, but I want my gun to be right. I want my decoys to be right. I want my backpack to be right because I'm painting myself a picture.
Right.
I'm painting myself
an experience
a picture.
You want to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's a big piece of it. And so, and I enjoy it all, and I have grown in myself. Like again, I started out hunting thinking that this was a vacation that men took, and then I realized how much we have to embody when we really go and do these things, and how serious I take it, both in my craft, in the woodsmanship, and in learning about the wildlife, and stringing it all together. And I live for it.
Thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I am super stoked about tonight.
I appreciate that.
How are people going to access this down the road?
Sure.
What's the plan in the immediate future?
There's two things. There's three things, really. But so they can pre-order it right now on DonnieVincent.com for both streaming or downloads and Blu-ray and DVD sales. They can do that right now. Go pre-order. Give me their money. Love the support. It's not me padding my pockets. It's me planning the next film. Is literally how it works out for us. So they can do that now. There's a screening here in Fort Collins that basically tickets were gone instantly. We have another one on the 19th of December in Minneapolis. Tickets are already gone. They were gone in a few days. But the film is going to tour across the U.S. I do want to get it, whether it be in 3 theaters, 5 theaters, 10 theaters, 50 theaters. We're figuring that out right now. We have a couple of people that want to air it, like it might air at ATA, Archery Trade Association.
Yeah.
I think it's going to air. I'm almost positive it's going to air at the Pope and Young convention this year. Pope and Young has asked me to air it there, and it'll air a number of other places. We do have a couple of gentlemen that we are in talks with right now, and if we can find where this works for everyone, they're going to literally put it in like 30 theaters across the country.
Nice.
So it will be in theaters.
And this is a legit long-running film.
80 minutes, 82 minutes, something like that. Yep. And it spans several years of filming, which is difficult because our cameras change, so the image changes, our sound quality changes, so we have to address that. We change with what we're wearing, our philosophies, we grow as men. And so trying to intertwine 6 years of your life into showing the evolution of where your mind has come from stem to stern is really difficult.
Yeah.
And all you have to work with is the stuff once we hit record.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, and then they can find me, of course, socially on Instagram and Facebook and stuff.
I wish you the best of
Thank you.
luck and blessings, and hope that it does well. And I'm always excited for what you are producing next. We need more of it, you know?
Yeah. Well, there's going to be more of it. There won't be a hiatus now. We have already multiple films already, basically, as they say, in the can, where we're going to start really ramping up production for us.
So exciting.
Yeah. So it'll be probably minimum a film a year now, and then some short pieces along the way.
Yeah.
So you'll have to find me tonight after you watch it.
Take it in.
Yeah, and let me know
what
you guys think. And
Definitely.
you can feel very open to say hated it. I would love to hear that as well.
I'll be true.
Yeah, be true.
Man.
Be true.
Thanks for tuning in to the Gritty Podcast. And as always, stay gritty.